10 random magic cards rated. Day number 152. We made it to Sunday, everybody. Hope you had a good week. Let's see what the first card is. After we hit F11 on our browser. You see how much better that is? Let's take a look. It's Bogardan Hellkite, man. Don't Bogart my Hellkite. This is 8 mana, 6 and 2 red for a 5/5 dragon with flash and flying, of course. It's a dragon. When it ETBs, it deals 5 damage divided among any number of creatures and or players. Pretty ridiculous card. Doesn't look like much, does it? But at one point, this was one of the more feared reanimator targets of all time. I mean, there's like a 5-year stretch there where this is playable, not just in standard, but like other formats and stuff. I don't know how like good this still is, but there was a point where this was basically the win condition in Dragon Storm, which was a Pro Tour winning deck. So you got that. I think it may have won Worlds and the Pro Tour. I'm kind of getting my lines crossed here, but I know that it did really, really well for like a whole year and a half. So there's that. But again, as a reanimator target, this did a lot of work as well. So yeah, Hellkite, man, you've got a place in Magic history. I would imagine the kids don't know you, right? This is one of those. The kids are like, David Bowie, who's that? It's really sad when you hear them say it, but it is what it is. Everything has their moment in time, and I think Bogardan Hellkite has already had his, but it's a card that makes me pop. You know, I see it, and I'm like, ooh, Bogardan Hellkite. You know, it's pretty good. So I'm going to give Hellkite, it's still decent. It's still pretty decent. I'm going to give this a 5.7 to start the day. Really expensive, but if you're paying full price for it, you didn't do it right. You know, so there's that. But I like Hellkite a lot, dude. Moving on to Spitting Earth. This we've done before, so I'm going to move on. But I will reiterate that Spitting Earth is a pretty good red commander card for making sure that you can actually like kill creatures with toughness greater than 3. You know, so keep that in mind. It's not bad. Spark Trooper is the actual next card of the day. This is 4 mana, 1, 2 red, and a white for a 6/1 elemental soldier with trample, lifelink, and haste. At the beginning of your end step, sacrifice Spark Troopers. So it's ball lightning with lifelink. And for the lifelink, it costs a white mana. That's the whole difference. Is it would normally cost 3, instead it costs 4. And that makes it like way worse. I like the throwback, man. I'm always gonna like a ball lightning reference, but when it comes to Spark Trooper, I'm just not sure that this is it, man. You know, like the whole point of ball lightning is it costs less mana than it should, and when you make this cost 4, it's, you know, worse. But still, I guess if you look at it as kind of like a fireball with lifelink, it gets a little bit better, but it isn't that, so you shouldn't look at it that way. That's the thing. I'm gonna give Spark Trooper a I'm gonna give Spark Trooper a 5. I don't have the heart to give anything less than that, but it probably deserves less than that. This card's like a 4.4 or something. If I'm being more realistic, I'd say like 4.53, you know, in that neighborhood. But I really wish I could rank this card higher. Let me just put it that way. Ooh, Treasure Cruise, baby. Treasure Cruise is next. Banned in Pauper, Modern, and even Legacy. And as a matter of fact, restricted in Vintage. That's how good this card is. It turns out this is pretty easy to just turn into Ancestral Recall. You know, 1 mana, draw 3. It was originally printed in Concept Art here. It's like 20 cents to buy, which is kind of surprising. But I imagine, you know, it's common. So there's that. But there's commons that are like $4. So that's not an excuse. It's probably because it's banned in all these formats. You can't play it anywhere, so whatever. I guess you can play it in Commander, and people do. People absolutely do. Wizards learned with Concept Art here that Delve is too good. Even down to Gurmag Angler, which is a pretty like normal guy. But even down to like just a 5/5 that costs less to cast. Like Delve is a really dangerous ability. So like Dig Through Time was too good. Treasure Cruise was probably arguably the best. I think it's actually kind of inarguable. Dig Through Time is a very good spell, but Treasure Cruise I think is the best of the Delve spells that were printed. And yeah, there's a reason this bad boy's banned. So let's give this a really high score, man. If this were Ancestral Recall, I would give it a 10. I think Ancestral Recall is a 10. Black Lotus is a 10. There are very few 10s. Time Walk is a 10. There are very, very few 10s in Magic history. But Treasure Cruise is like a 9.8. It's really up there, dude. I think that realistically I have to give this like a 9.71, right? in that neighborhood. But Treasure Cruise will almost certainly be the best card that we see in like the next 2 weeks, and probably the last 2 weeks for that matter. I can't remember what I gave Brainstorm. I feel like Brainstorm was like a 8.5, and it should have been higher than that. But this to my mind is right there with Brainstorm, and so I should probably just give them both 9 point something. You know what I mean? But Treasure Cruise is a special card. They knew this was too much when they printed it. Like, come on, 7? You're not going to have 7 cards in your yard. You are. It's so easy to have 7 cards in your yard, man. It's so easy. So, yeah, a bit of a mistake. Treasure Cruise was. So, again, like 9.7 in that neighborhood. It's the best card we're going to come across in the next couple of weeks unless we hit Black Lotus. Right now, let's see. Bonds of Faith. It'll happen one day. Bonds of Faith is 2 mana, 1 and a white for an aura that enchants a creature. The creature gets +2/+2 as long as it's human. Otherwise, this is just a pacifism. The creature can't attack or block. This is originally printed in Innistrad, strictly better pacifism. And I like pacifism. These are always decent removal spells. You know, this demon carrying around Lady Gaga on one of its horns, that's also sick art, so I have to give Steve Argyle that too. Nice socks as well. This is, Argyle socks. She's also, I think she might be wearing socks. Maybe it's a boot upon closer inspection. Anyway, enough looking at her feet. That's odd. This is okay. What did I give pacifism? I think I give pacifism the honorary 5, you know? And I'll give this a 5 as well. I think this is playable removal with an upside sometimes, and at the very bottom of it, it's pacifism, and like that's sick. Pacifism's good spells. You know, I think I rate pacifism higher than most people, but I still think it's a playable removal spell. I really do. I like it. But next is Bosque, which is really a mountain. Good John Avon art. It's fine. Basic lands get a 5, and do not count. And I rate the art. I actually really like this. The more I look at it, the more I like it. I'm going to give this a 7.8. Next is Ossification. We're hitting all the pseudo-pacifisms today. This is more of a Oblivion Ring effect, but it's pretty good. It's printed in Phyrexia. All will be one. It's currently about 60 to 40 cents. 40 to 60, I should say. 2 mana, 1 and a white for an aura that enchants a basic land that you control. When Ossification enters the battlefield, exile target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls until Ossie leaves the battlefield. So more than playable removal. This saw a good amount of play in Standard when it was the best option and when there was less enchantment removal in Standard. You know, I feel like a lot of cards like this have suffered because of the presence of like Get Lost and a number of other like cheap, easy, main deckable enchantment removal spells. You don't see stuff like this anymore, and when you do, it's more likely to be like Sheltered by Ghosts, which, you know, at least gives the creature like a ward ability or whatever. So again, these are not as in fashion as they once were, but you see them every now and again, and they're pretty good in a vacuum because, you know, Standard right this second is the kind of snapshot that I don't want to judge a card on. So it's seen a lot of Standard play in the past, and it's a fairly playable card even outside of Standard. So I'll give this a 5.3. Huh? I gave the other pacifism a 5. I actually think this does deserve like a 5.26 or something like that, because this is one of the better effects like this that we've like ever seen when it really comes down to it. It's not bad. Rasaad in Bashir is up next. This is from Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate. 3 mana, 2 and a white for a 0/3 0/3 legendary human monk. Each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Okay, all right. Whenever Rasaad attacks, if you have the initiative, double the toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. You can also choose a background, so you can have a background as a second commander. All right, that's fine. So it's one of these. It goes in your Arcades the Strategist deck. I guess it could also be your commander, and that would be kind of a fun mono white thing to try to build, but I'm sure it just goes in the 99 of Arcades is what most likely this does. And if you do have the initiative, you're basically doubling the power of all the creatures. It's really, really good, right? And if this is your commander, then being able to choose a background it's good. There's probably some fun backgrounds that go with this. So like altogether, I kind of like it. It's only 4 cents too. That seems like a kind of a steal for a card that's like shoe-in 99 for Arcades. Guaranteed. But again, it's a fun commander. I'll give this like a 4.6. I guess I'm feeling generous today. I don't know if he really deserves a 4.6, but I just really like cards like this, and this is one that I've like never seen. So I'll take it. I'm also a sucker for anything with a full moon in the art. He's also got a bow, And bow's the best weapon. Donatello's my favorite turtle. He's wearing purple, which is the best color. He's got a bow, which is the best weapon, and he's smart, which is the best like latent or innate talent, in my opinion at least. So Donatello, best turtle. I like this guy. I don't know where it all factors in, but I'm sure it does somehow. Next it's Draining Whelk from Time Spiral. You, my beautiful man, you. This is 6 mana, 4 and 2 blue. Draining Whelk's actually a girl, by the way. Every time I'm trying to draw this card, I'm like, come on, baby. Come on, girl. Give me Draining Whelk. So 4 and 2 blue for a 1/1 illusion. But hold on. It's got Flash and Flying. When it comes into play, counter target spell and put X +1/+1 counters on Whelk. X being that spell's converted mana cost. First of all, this reminds me of the first boss in Final Fantasy III. It's a giant snail. Final Fantasy 6/3. It depends on what like country you're playing it in, I guess. But it's like a giant snail. You have to beat with Terra and Biggs and Wedge. And it's called a Whelk. And so every time I see a Whelk, it instantly reminds me of that and makes me happy. But this also reminds me of a good time that I had in Standard back in the day. Toast used to be a deck. I've talked about Toast on the channel a couple of times. Like a 5-color control deck with Reflecting Pool, Mystical Teachings, Cruel Ultimatum was one of the sort of finishing moves, the running knee in that deck. But another one of the big finishers in there was Draining Whelk, usually as a 2 of in the main and then more in the sideboard, depending on the matchup. But Draining Whelk was a fantastic finishing move in that deck. It almost functions like a mana drain. It doesn't give you mana, but it counters a spell and then gives you this huge benefit. So Draining Whelk, depending on what you're countering, would sometimes come down with 3 counters, 2 counters, something like that. Not a big deal, but still like a creature that can end the game. But if you're countering, say, like a Cruel Ultimatum on the other side of the table, or some other like 5, 6, 7 mana spell, then suddenly Draining Whelk becomes really swingy. This thing that takes their best play away from them and is a 6/6 or a 7/7, right? If it counters Cruel Ultimatum, it's like an 8/8. So absolutely brutal piece in Standard for a while. This did see, I believe, again, Pro Tour or Worlds play. It was in, was it Utah? I think it was either Utah or Guillermo Wafo-Tapa, something like that. It was in one of their decks, like a celebrated control player. It may have been Shota, as a matter of fact, but I think this was before Shota's time, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, I'm getting too wonky and nerdy on Pro Magic at this point. This was a card that was played in multiple sort of control builds back in the day as a finisher that also often took their last hope away from them while putting a huge threat on the table for you. And they're just out of cards, so they don't have removal for it. Just fantastic card. Looks kind of terrible in a lot of ways. 6 mana 1/1. I don't want a 6 mana counter spell. Turns out, as a 1 or 2 of off the top rope last finishing move in your control deck, you absolutely do want that. So I'm gonna give Draining Whelk a 6. Straight up 6. I'm not sure it's going to be good in Commander or anything, but just based on pedigree and personal experience, I love this card, man. I really do. It's handed me my entire, both of my whole butt cheeks in the past, but I've also used it to do that to other people. It's the swingiest, one of the swingiest cards known to man. But we'll move on to Fog. Good old Fog, baby, from limited edition Alpha. Not often that we get not just a card this old, but a card that's we get the Alpha edition of it. How was this worded back in the day? There are far more words on this than there are in the Oracle text. 1 green mana for an instant. Creatures attack and block as normal, but none deal any damage. All attacking creatures are still tapped. Play any time before attack damage is dealt. Yeah, that's a lot. Nowadays, it just says prevent all combat damage that will be dealt this turn, which is, for all the crap that Magic cards get for being wordy in the modern age, and they are, that is elegant right there in its simplicity. I really like Fog. And I think I'm going to give this the honorary 5, because otherwise I'd be scared that I'd have to give it less than that. You know what I mean? Because I took away the honorary 5 from Spark Trooper or whatever it was earlier. We rated that card correctly in the end. I think the honorary 5 belonged with Fog. There are Fog decks. Turbo Fog is a whole deck. So maybe I should actually give this a higher score than a 5. But judged in a vacuum, it's not very good. It's just not. It's just Fog. This card was kind of known as a joke for a long time until a couple of players decided to take it upon themselves to make it a real deck. 4 Fog, 4 Reprise or Reprisal, whatever it's called. Respite. It was 4 Respite. Moment of Peace was a 4 of in that deck, and Spore Frog came out, and Spore Frog, and you reanimated over and over. Fog was a fun deck back in the day, man, but it took a while for it to fully take form. This is a classic card, though. Even before Turbo Fog was a deck, it was kind of iconic for being a joke in some players' eyes, and in other players' eyes, kitchen table players and like inexperienced players just love the idea of a fog. And I will say there are times where on the kitchen table I have absolutely been blown out overcommitting to an attack by a fog. So like, don't let it happen to you. It's pretty brutal. Yeah, honorary 5. Every day of the week, baby. Moving on to Red Death Shipwrecker. This is a cool looking card, man. It's from Fallout. It is 2 mana, a red and a blue for a 1/3 legendary crab mutant with alluring eyes. Alluring eyes. You can tap it to goad target creature an opponent controls. That player draws a card and you add red. So it's a mana dork in Is It. With no restrictions, usually something like this in Is It, to use that mana only to cast instants and sorceries or some stupid garbage. But it has to have a target, right? Your opponent has to have a creature to target. But still, it's cute. That's cute. They draw a card for you to get ramp. I don't know, man. When it's called Red Death Shipwrecker and it's like a big crab with red eyes, I expect it to be more than like a 2 mana 1/3 with like a ability. But I guess you'll do whatever it takes for ramp. I don't think you want to let people draw cards, Maybe you use it politically, but are politics even really a thing in Commander? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. This is pretty terrible, though, so I'm going to just throw like a 3 on it, because maybe it does something I don't understand. Who knows? Exotic Orchard we've done before. It's good. It's a fine card. It's been printed 1,000 times. Fine. It's Lava Dart, everybody, from Judgment. This is a single mana. It's red for an instant that deals damage to a creature or a player. You can flash it back by sacking a mountain. It doesn't look like much, right? It looks pretty bad. This card's dope. This card's boss. This card's shown up as a 4 of in a ton of burn decks over the years, man. And it is legal in Pauper, where it does show up in like Pauper Burn a lot of the time. Being able to not pay anything to flash this card back is insane. Especially in the late game, your opponent's down to 2-3 life points left, and you have a few lava darts in your yard. I guess it's free to finish the game. So it doesn't look like much, but it does so much more for you than you might think when you first read the card. So I'm going to give Lava Dart, like, this. It's not good in Commander. I'll say this is mostly for casual Commander, right? But a lot of times, like, competitive rankings do factor in. And there's a card that's been competitively playable for, like, most of its life cycle. So Lava Dart, you're like the 3rd best card of the day because it's been a particularly good day, but you're still like a 7.3 or something. Again, you might think that I'm going way too in on this card, but that's really what it deserves. If you've never like played with or against Lava Dart, it's so much better than it looks. I thought it was bad too when I first saw it. Nah, dude, it's crazy. This card's nuts. But anyway, that is it for today, everybody. Hope you had a good Sunday, and I'll see you bright and early to start your week. Bye.